Hey, David Wood here, and welcome to My Extra Mile. You know, today I get to interview two extraordinary multimillionaires and beautiful human beings that show us how they turned their work into their passion and teach us how to fall in love with the things we have to do so that we can focus and do the things we love to do. Enjoy the show, and please subscribe and join the conversation. Enjoy. Welcome, Jen. Well, welcome, Jono, my brother from another mother. I'm just a little shaggy. I'm just a little shaggier than you right now.
Well, mate.
Mind you, this is 4 days growth. What's yours?
Trimming, mate. I'm trimming all the time.
Yeah.
Every
exactly.
day.
You know, we want to, the conversation we were just chatting about, which is about, you know, falling in love with work. It's just a strange concept for most people. Most people work just hard enough so they don't get fired, and they get paid just enough so they don't leave. So what do you mean, you know, when you say the word falling in love with work, Jen? Talk to me about that concept, because it's such a, for me, a powerful concept and really life-changing in so many ways. But what do you mean by it?
Well, I guess when, you know, we have words. We all have words that we attach meaning to. And we can pluck any word and talk about it, and work's a great word to talk about. So if you think about the word work and you write down, when you think about work, what does that mean to you? What is work? What is work? What is work? It's really fascinating to see how people come up with two completely different lists. And I've done this activity with a lot of people, and I hear words like hard and have to and boring and repetitive and it's a drag and dread and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And it really fascinates me, because I think so differently about work. I think of a sense of achievement and a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. And it doesn't matter what sort of work it is, whether we're here on the farm and it's heavy physical work and you're dirty and stinky and smell like cow poo and horse poo, but when you have a shower at the end of the day, it's just the best shower. You know, that shower just feels like no other shower felt. It's like when you're mustering cattle all day and you don't get to have a drink all day, and that all you can think about by the last hour is water, and you have that water as the best tasting water that you've ever tasted. And really, it's the same as the water you had at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? But it tastes completely different. And that's the thing. That's the thing about work. Like, if we can fall in love with doing the work and knowing that it's one step at a time, moving towards something, whether it's coming up with an idea and creating it and turning it into a reality, or just putting in a good day's work for the sake of that feeling of, I did a good day's work today. Yeah. I don't know. To me, it changes everything. And I actually love work. Because you can only sit on the beach.
It's interesting because, you know, you hear a lot of people say, Jono, right? Work is like a 4-letter word. It's almost like people have this negative connotation, like you just said, Jono. It's just like, it's a 4-letter word, like a dirty word. So, Jono, what's been, when you hear Jen talking about this and you talk about it together, how have you learned to love to work, whether it's mustering the cows or whether it's, you know, whatever that is? I mean, how does that work for you?
I mean, I love to just, you know, have a result, like already know what I'm going to do the next day and plan for that. And like, just to hear Jen talk about that, then like that just lit me up like straight away. I was like, right, I want to go. I mean, obviously you call this work, but it is work, of course. But I mean, I want to race out and start working like straight away, you know. And it's that beautiful feeling to be able to get up every day and have that passion to just really drive towards a specific goal and know that no matter what you're doing, even if if you're in a negative situation at the time, what I've found in the past is that everything is a learning and everything applies to the future, and you can learn from anything. It doesn't matter what it is. As you drive forward, and you know, it all makes sense. It all adds up, and you think, even at a time where you might be like, I don't understand this. Why are we doing this at the moment? that actually revolves fully around and you go, now I understand why. Whether that was a negative or a positive at the time, it doesn't matter. But often the negative is where you get the biggest learning. And, work to be able to...
That reminds me when you were working in the mines, basically
Exactly.
shoveling
Perfect example.
lead, shoveling copper.
Perfect example.
For like years,
Yep.
for big long shifts, just shoveling shit.
Yep.
Basically. But then that feels so hard and you think, why am I doing this? What was I thinking? Why am I here? But then 10 years later, when you're doing a different job,
Exactly.
you can remember, and it's feeling hard, you can contrast back to that and go, actually, this isn't as hard.
No.
Like, I could do this. This is actually easy because, wow, that was hard.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, and also, when you look at, a few people come to mind for me. Well, I remember being in Thailand, and I went into a bathroom, and you have these bathroom attendants, and this bathroom was the cleanest bathroom I've ever seen in the world, right? And he was the happiest person I've ever met in the world. And this is going to sound ridiculous when I tell you what he did, right? So I finished having, pee, and I came over, washing my hands. He hands me a towel, right? And then he comes up to me and he gives me a full adjustment. Like he's this little tiny Thai guy, but he adjusts my back like a chiropractic adjustment. And he almost picks me off the ground. It's like, but I walked out of there, and we were actually at a kickboxing match. And I walked back to my friend who was there. I said, I can't believe this. I had the best experience. And they're like, you in a bathroom with a guy? And I'm like, no, you don't get it. There's this guy who's so proud of his space, and he's bringing additional things to it. Jen, talk to me about that. Talk to me about, even if the people listening right now who don't love what they're doing, but if they can love and bring passion and purpose to the things they dislike, because they're going to go anyway. They're going to spend 8 or 10 hours a day. But when you start bringing that passion and purpose to something, you often get pulled away. You get other offers. You get all these different things happen, but you just feel happier, right?
Well, yeah, and it's a decision. It's a decision to make, right? It's like, well, because the truth is we're not stuck anywhere. The truth is we don't have to go to work tomorrow. We don't have to do anything really. That we can change our path at any point in time if we really want to. And yes, there might be some some difficulty and some discomfort in changing our path, but we can. So when we realize that we're choosing to go, we're choosing to be there, then we might as well find a way to enjoy it. Because every moment that we're not in a space of joy, we're in, or every moment that we're in a space of resentment or not joy, we're not in a space of joy. And why would we do that to ourselves, especially when most people need to work, at least 8 hours a day, which is a big chunk of the day. So there has to be, we either have to find a way to find the joy or make a change. It's that simple really, but I guess it's then the next step is quite a challenging step for so many people, is to make a change. And my dad always taught me something really cool. And it was that, what? Why not give it a go? Because what's the worst thing that can happen? You go back. So he said to me, when I was a physiotherapist and I was starting to feel like I wanted something different and it was getting a bit boring and I wasn't finding the joy in it anymore. He said, well, why don't you give it a go? You can always go back to being a physio. And so just knowing that, it makes it easier to make a change. And I guess as kids, Dad was in the police force, so we always got moved around. And it was awful. I remember every time we changed to school, it was awful for the first 6 months. But then after that, you met all these new friends that you never knew you had. And so it's when we realize, I think it's easier to find joy when we actually acknowledge to ourselves that we're choosing where we are.
Yeah.
We're not really stuck there. And that's hard for a lot of people to do, to accept that they are choosing where they are every day.
Well, I love the idea of that because, when I coach people, I always look at their language first. I have to, I need to, I choose to. There's a very, very vibrant energy about choice. I choose to go to work. I choose to do this. I mean, there are people who have, like I talked about the guy at the toilet, right? There are people who have jobs and they're passionate about it. And there's people who have really good jobs and they hate it and they go to work. And when we look at what the work, JOB, a lot of people laugh about it, just over broke, because that's a mindset, right? So I have to do it, that burden. Jono, you've coached a lot of people out of conventional work and sort of to take that jump, to take a risk, to sort of like Jen's father talked about, just go for it. Talk to me about that. What's it been like? What's the biggest fear that people have about leaving what they know to discover something that's new?
It's a good question, Dave. I think it's just, often it's just to take that first step, because even though they might be in pain, they still have to measure up. Well, I've still got my comfort zone here. Do I want to take that step? What have I got to lose? What have I got to win from this? Can I do it? Can I transition across? And it's that first step that is always the hardest for people. We're very fortunate we have something too that people can dip their toe in a little bit, and then step back a little bit if they need to. And so that we have a great vehicle in that respect. But I think it's that initial step, Dave, is that people are just they just get so set in their ways, and they're like, oh no, I haven't laid on that nail long enough yet. I need to lay on that nail a little bit longer. And it's amazing because you can have these conversations with people and you think, yes, they're ready. And they're not. They're still not. And so it's this dance that you get with people. So it's to get them to step across.
It's also, we talk about this a lot because your background kind of was different to mine. So the way that you grew up was kind of in the same space, in the same town, doing the same stuff, and your mum and dad kind of didn't really get out of that space. And then, so when you first got out of that space, so there must have been something you were willing to go, oh, stuff it, I'm going to go and give it a go. And you moved up whoop whoop into the middle of nowhere.
Moved to where? Whoop whoop?
Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, so I guess there's a box. We're born, but the way that we grow up places us in a certain type of box. And I don't know that it even occurs to some people to lift the lid and have a little peek out. But other people have seen their parents or other people around them constantly lifting the lid and peeking out and completely, in some cases, changing the box. But if you've never seen that, if you didn't know that there's even a lid on the box to peek out, I guess it's more difficult to take that first look and more scary to put your leg out and go, oh, what's it like out here?
I think it's a great point. We're driven by experiences, Dave, and it's like, my mum and dad, they were beautiful parents. My dad's still alive. They were great parents. They nurtured us in a great environment, but we were always restricted. I felt like we were restricted, and the conversation was always around money and around lack of money and what we can do, what we can't do, or you can't do that. And it's just that for me, it was a case of, well, there's got to be more to this. There's got to be more to this. And luckily I was also surrounded by some great mentors as I got a little older from my mid sort of, I don't know if it was just by chance, but it was surrounded by some great mentors who were business people and so forth that showed me a different way, from the age of roughly 14, 15 onwards. And then I started to ask that question, well, why? How can they do it? Why haven't my parents done that? And it was nothing against my mum and dad by any means, but it was that powerful question in your head that was constantly playing all the time. Well, there's a different life there. There's got to be a different way. And that's when it started, from that very young age.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, in our next conversation, I actually think we'll talk about that. I think having a conversation about money and mindset and conditioning and, the money blueprint, I think would be so cool for the three of us to chat about. Before we leave this conversation though, Jen talked about when we started about work. And what's your advice? Someone listening right now and they feel maybe stuck, or they feel like they've chosen a path and they are scared to leave that path, or they're, all the different scenarios around work. What's the one thing that you want to leave them with that can allow them to either fully embrace what they're doing more, or have the courage to take a step away from it? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think the reality is we're 5 years away from learning any new skill. Like you can go and get a university degree in under 5 years, right? So 5 years, when we look forward, seems like, oh, 5 years, but we all know when we look backwards, 5 years just went in a flash. And oh my gosh, was that 5 years ago? I can't believe. So knowing that we're 5 years away from really learning any new skill, and 10 years away from being a complete master, really, in that, anyone who's had a few different careers, when you're hitting that 8-10 year mark, you're really starting to feel like, yeah, I got this game now. I'm not having to panic and plan and rehearse and like, I remember when I first became a physio, it'd be like, oh, shoulder patient. Okay. And I'd write down a list the night before of all the questions I needed to ask a shoulder patient, and then all the tests I needed to do. And then that was my first years of work. Oh no, a knee. And I'd have this list, and I'd go to see the patient. And of course, by the time you've worked for 5 years, so you're 10 years now into the whole thing, you don't need the lists. You're just like, you ask 2 questions, you figure it out and tell them what to do. And so knowing that we're 5 years away from, attaining a new skill, and only 10 years away from mastering a new skill. And when we come out of school, we're broke. We have nothing. We own nothing. And we're willing to go and start at the bottom and choose something and go for it. Why can't we do that at any point in our life? So if anyone's really unhappy and really not finding any sense of fulfillment or able to in the space that they're currently in, I think it's just so cool to know we're 5 years away from a whole new path.
That's so awesome. All right. So listen, thanks for this. Those of you listening, this is all about those little tiny incremental steps. My extra mile is about doing those small, tiny things. And again, it's like if you don't have the things you want, there's probably something you don't know. So listen to these words, embrace them. And if you're loving the conversation, join us at the next one where we're going to talk about money.